Hello Tubesters, it's Gav. Welcome to another one of my videos. Yes, another one. I'm sorry about the amount of videos, and as I say, I cover a lot of subjects on the channel. Well, you know, figure painting, modelling, bit of wargaming. As the wargaming side of it's here with these 6mm 1 in 300 scale. It's 1 in 300 scale. Was it 1 in 3000? I can't remember. I think these are old heroics and Ross ones anyway. But I've got this. I'm calling it a Normandy project, but they could be used for anything really, I suppose. Well, within parameters. So they're metal. I was given these when I was in a War Games club years ago. A fellow was kind enough to give me these. He'd been giving them in a job lot of a friend of his that passed away, and they were the bits, you know, he wasn't into that type of scale already, and he said, Gav, you know, you were on about starting, or you had them as a kid, would you fancy having these? And as we've discovered when I did the can anybody help me find out what particular types of vehicles some of them are, some of them were bought obviously for an Israeli conflict or the Arab-Israeli wars or whatever. So what I'm going to do is, when I've got a bit of spare money, I'm going to get some, I'll try some of the Bacchus at 6mm, which were actually designed for the Normandy campaign type era of 1944. So I'm going to have a go at getting some of them as well. I just enjoy painting them. They're easy to work with, and I will probably be getting. I will probably have a game of these. I've got to get some infantry and stuff as well. Because I've got you know, I've got enough to apart from some infantry, I've got to put some infantry on stands and that. I think the heroics and Ross ones are just a bit too tiddly. I'm not bothered about the scale creep so much. They're all individually based, and a lot of people don't like basing these vehicles. They prefer just painting them, and you know, they don't like moving bases around, and especially like I'll have a little tiny dingo, you know, 2-man armoured car, scout car. I'll have that on a 20 by 30 base. It doesn't bother me. That's just, you know, these are for me at the end of the day. So yeah, let's go down and take a look. As I say, I've had them on the bench for ages. I've done, what, about 4 had I? I think I've done a video where I'd shown 4 or 6 of previous lot, and I was just getting ideas what I wanted to do with them. I've added a bit more to them this time. Again, more or less the same types of vehicles, because that's what I was given, so I haven't really got much of a difference between them. But hopefully, you know, coming weeks, months, I'll add a few more extras from Bacchus to them, just to do something different and you know, get some soft skin vehicles and things like that. Anyway, let's go down and take a look. Right guys, thanks for joining me at the bench. Let me just get this light down a bit more. I have put some photographs at the end, just a bit of a close-ups. So we've got a universal carrier, or as commonly known as a Bren carrier. Now Bacchus do some different decals for these. I think they've got numbers for the German tanks. They've got obviously different Allied invasion markings or ID markings. They're about £5 a sheet. Now, whether I get some, it's I don't know yet. But there'd be no point, I don't think, on these. I think they'd probably be too big for the vehicles, because these are bound to be a bit on the smaller side. So I've done a Mickey Mouse camouflage on this. You can just about see. I did and R about doing it because it was never really going to show up. But and I painted the decals on. Some of my stars are better than others. Just did a very basic. I'd got some spare in the wet palette. I've got some spare flesh type colours, and I just daubed a bit on his face, and on the insides I've just done like canvas seats and stuff there, you know, nothing over the top. I try and almost blackline a lot of the vehicles out, so they just, you know, different bits stand out more. I've made some coniferous trees out of blue foam spare. I keep all my scraps, so everything's expensive. So whether it's styrene sheet, you know, evergreen styrene sheet, if there's the tiniest stuff cut, I'll keep that, because you never know when you can use it. So yeah, that's just blue foam just carved out, and I separate it a bit down the tops to make it like a little bunch of coniferous trees. I'm not making them any bigger than that. They look a bit ridiculous on the base itself. But I'll be quite happy to do that en masse on a. I'll probably be doing that like little coniferous plantations. But I'd just like to make something of the base. I decided I'd go with these larger bases because they tend to be fairly standard then for most of the vehicles. I'm sure there'll be some vehicles maybe that won't squeeze on there. I might have to go up a size, but hopefully not. I'd painted texture over the sand before. I'd obviously put the sand base on, and I think the other ones, what I'd actually done was just paint the sand as grass. But I remembered I'd got all this like busted up Jarvis scenic stuff for railways, and I put that on. It just rises it up a bit, or raises it up a bit, with a bit more clump scatter from Woodland Scenics, and I put a bit of glue over that to firm it up, and then just dry brush it with a different colour. Again, we just have some ripped up ground with the tracks. I've done, as I said, that the vehicles were a lot lighter than they probably would have been in real life, but again, it just raises them up a bit. On these, they are really basic because I'm having to draw indoors in that, and not very well. I'm hoping to, when I do get some Bacchus ones, they'll be a bit more, a bit further along in design. I mean, these were done in the late 60s or 70s, I think. And so we got chips out of them and that. Again, I haven't put trees on them all. I tried to mix it up as I've gone along. We've got a little dingo, scout car, two-man scout car, often used for moving officers around in an armoured regiment. And again, I try and mix each base up slightly, so just slightly different. I did think of doing some curved track, like where other tanks have been, but I just thought it probably wouldn't. It takes some explaining, if that makes sense. People think, well, what's that arc of brown that's been driven around there? At least if you're putting it behind the tanks, people get the idea. I mean, with that, all it is just I use the original base brown I put back over the top of the dry brushed sand, and then I just put like a very dark black or black brown just to show it a bit deeper. That's a Challenger, by the way. I think I said before, from what I was reading up, the crews actually preferred these as the tank kit, as the one that could take, because the 17 pounder, it's the same in a Firefly, and obviously it could take on Panthers and the Tiger to a degree. But what the crews liked about it was lower to the ground, that it wasn't so high up as the Sherman, and you could actually depress the gun an extra 5 degrees, which you couldn't do on the Sherman. So it was actually, although it looks a bit of a usual British, we weren't very, until the Centurion came along. Some of our early tanks, although the people knock them, they were of their era, but we could never really nail a decent tank. So that's the Challenger. What else have we got? Cromwell. Again, that one's on a fairly basic. And so I just put the basic base. I'll always tend to put track marks on just to show the ground's been turfed up a bit. Is it a 2.5? Well, I keep forgetting all the 2.5 1/2 tracks. There's no machine gun. I did think of putting a bit of wire in there, and I thought, no, I'll leave it. But if you, like on these little trees, once you've scored out, and you've got to do it gently, obviously, because they're quite delicate. I actually super glue these to the base first rather than use my normal PVA. And then by the time I've gone round again with PVA and sand, it tends to hold them quite firm. You watch, I thought I was going to bend over then. But yeah, once you've once you've done all your mid-tones and so let's not talk about the figure painting yet. Right, once you put your base green on, whatever that is, then you put a lighter colour on. I only give one a highlight, but I go for quite a bright one. But then I get black and I go into the very deep recesses just to show them really dark shadow areas, and I think it's quite effective. We've got a couple here the same. I've got a lot of these for some reason. The guy over someone. Sorry if you can hear that. It's our washing machine thundering away. And they're on a fairly basic. Another universal carry. Got a fair few of those, and if you're doing Normandy, you need a fair few universal carriers. Done a bit of, again, got a bit of off-cut blue foam. Cut it down a bit more just to get the thin. I've got a bit of a stuff there. I could have done better with that. It's supposed to be a wall that's fallen apart, and this wall here, it's just like an old estate. In my head, it's just an old estate wall on some French farming estate or whatever, and it's probably been fallen down way before, either in the first part of the war or maybe is in disrepair for years. But Universal Carry's using it as a bit of cover. Another universal carrier with a bit of a rubbishy Allied star there. Cromwell. I've done him with I cut off an MG 42 and just put it on a piece of, I'd done a bit of putty and made it as if it was a slit trench with a machine gun that's been abandoned. Don't really think that works that well, but that's the story behind that one. This one is, again, it needs a bit of explaining. Again, Mark IV, Panzer Mark IV. If you ever see the photographs along the roadsides of Normandy, you have all that, just like we have in most of our, like round, when you get into the sticks around here, it's the drainage ditches obviously at the side of the road, and that's what that is. It's not a trench, it's a drainage ditch. As I say, you have to be in Gav's head to actually understand what things are, I suppose, but I know what they are. So yeah, that's a drainage ditch at the side of the road that I used to see a lot of the black and white photographs from Normandy. And we've got obviously a round that's hit the ground there at some point. Yeah, another Cromwell with another small explosion has occurred. And I go around, because these are really simply done, these ones, and I go around and I do it with the more modern ones that have been CAD drawn, and that I'd or 3D printed because they'll often do a 3D print now and then cast off that. But I try and black line out all the shapes if I can, or majority of them, just to get them to stand out a bit more. And then the last one's another Mark IV. Got them in a bit of cover here. Again, these plates probably aren't the right amount of side skirts. There was no grooves down them. I've just had to draw them in. Obviously, I've obviously not tried to put any numbers. Just a simple Vulcan cross. What I'll probably do on some of them is raise some of these bushes. Next time I've got more on the bench they're just going through the stripping process. It's just stripping all the paint off them. But I didn't want to do thousands and thousands of the same ones, so these ones will be all from that batch that I want to play around with for now until I get some new ones. But I will try and do some higher, some of these, have the coniferous ones, but have some deciduous trees slightly higher. I don't want anything like, as I say, up here, which would be natural, but obviously you're moving them around on a base, so it just gives a bit of extra to the base, I think. Yes, I know if you were going to do a winterized one, a bit stuck really, but you just use your imagination. Right, thank you very much, guys. As I said, there'll be a few photos on at the end. really nice little project. As I say, it's you know me, I've got 101, but I said that about all my 10 mils that I occasionally paint for the League of Augsburg in the 1690s, but and I haven't gamed any of those yet, but I'll probably have a game of these. They've been really, you know, that I had these. I could afford these when I was like 16, 17, and you know, I've always liked this type of scale for the 28mm tanks. I could paint one, build it, paint it, and then sell it, if that makes sense, if it would sell. But they don't really float my boat, that type of scale, for this type of World War II. I do prefer these little guys. It's horses for courses, isn't it? But I do prefer these little guys. Right, look after yourselves. Thanks for stopping by and taking a look. We'll have an update on my 1 in 35 stroke 1 in 32 M48A2 for Vietnam, for the heavy guns and heavy armour and heavy guns group build. I would have tried to slip these in, but there's not really much building going on there. So I think I'd be asking a lot of Joachim and Marcus. But still, never mind. Yeah, so there's that to come up. We got the Roman. I've got to just finish those blooming shields off, so I will get the Praetorians finished for a quick video. And then there's other stuff. There's no point. Oh, I've got to show the Bismarck at some stage, haven't I? No, I've not built one. It's not. You live in hope. No, it's the Bismarck is the 1 in 700 I got for Christmas with a full photo etch stuff, and I would like to show that off as an unboxing, just to show the photo etch more than anything. I mean, there's tons of it. Having problems with the Lexington at the moment. I have no idea why, but one of the gun, the anti-aircraft mounts below the flight deck is pushed my flight deck up, and I mean the flight deck's not stuck down, but I've been doing 2 nights now scraping away, and I have no idea what I've done, and I'm definitely using the right mount, but the one problem I've come across with I mean, I've got a trumpeter, the Bismarck's trumpeter, so it'll be interesting to see. But that Lexington is, they are really vague where things go on some of them, and of course it had to be the end of the flight deck as well. But anyway, there's no point going on about that. But yeah, so there's lots of other things going on. That's what I'm trying to say. So from these little guys in Normandy in 1944, thank you very much for stopping by and taking a look. As I say, I'll be adding to these. What I've got, as I say, there's no difference. It's really all the same. But I've got those 3 or 4, 5, 6 from 2D6, so I'm going to paint those up as well. Put them on a base. But I've run out of bases, so that's something else I'm just waiting for some money for to send off to war bases. Problem is now with our postage, it's that fraught. You just think, why bother? You know, I mean, things can be. Sometimes, as I say, if they've taken them off the top of a fresh pile when they've come back into work, you might get them literally just a couple of days late. But I've like those cards that I got yesterday. I mean, they're literally a month. I think they've probably been sat in the system a month before I got them, and I'm still missing a Harry Potter figure that I bought cheap to go into my collection to paint it someday, and that's been in transit now a month. So yeah, anyway, waffling as always. Look after yourselves, and I hope everything's going well with you, and we'll catch each other soon on another video.